with not so many technical difficulties this time. This is Monday, December 21st, 2020, and this is Joe Imbriano, your host, the Fullerton Informer, coming to you live on this Monday night, the night that Jupiter and Saturn are supposed to line up with each other, and it's all some really big important event astrologically, right? Well, as I was beginning to allude to earlier today, all this astrology business is, it's not for the birds, folks. It's for the phoenix birds, okay? And any of you that understand what a phoenix bird is will understand what I just said. I want to thank you for tuning in. My contact information is Joe Imbriano, P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834. On the web at thefullertoninformer.com and WiFiDangers.com and VaxDangers.com and 5GDangers.com and CellTowerDangers.com. And of course, NASAFraud.com and NASA666.com. All right, so what I was going to talk about earlier today were the air purifiers, folks. You know, the oxygen that we breathe is very, very important. You know, it just so happens to be perfectly, you know, what comes out of the stomata of these trees and plants, leaves, is just the perfect type of oxygen that's in the soil. And they convert atmospheric gases that are basically the waste products of animals and people and decomposition of organic matter, that is carbon dioxide, and they'll turn it into you know, carbon, you know, cellulose. They'll turn it into lumber. They'll turn it into fiber that we turn into paper, and, you know, all kinds of things to eat, things to build with, and in some cases for people, things to smoke. But by and large, the carbon dioxide is produced by us as a waste product of aerobic respiration. Our body takes in oxygen and breathes out CO2, and the trees capture it and flip it back around. So we have plenty to breathe, right? And then whatever the trees can't take care of when they drop their leaves, the oceans make up 66% of the Earth's oxygen productivity. That's right. Photosynthetic algae and marine and freshwater plants produce 2/3 of the Earth's oxygen. Those are statistics that are the truth, folks. Now, you've got to have oxygen, and when I say oxygen, I mean O2. That's what's in the atmosphere. Not O3, not ozone, not reactive oxygen species, not these scavengers that are actually dangerous. But yet, folks, that's exactly what is being pumped into buildings, new cars, and churches and airplanes and schools and office buildings and apartment complexes and condo complexes and studios and casinos and theaters and cruise ships, air conditioning systems, right? They're using ultraviolet light to allegedly disinfect the air, right? And they're also using a cold plasma reactive oxygen species generating system to allegedly purify the air, right? What they're alleging is that there is some virus that is airborne, and that in order to render this virus non-threatening, or to render this virus no longer capable of attacking us, it must be exposed to ultraviolet light, and it must be exposed to reactive oxygen species. The systems that are being added to the buildings during the shutdown have the ability to produce a compound called a reactive oxygen species. Now, just a quick note about what are referred to as reactive oxygen species. These are oxygen compounds that are very, very short-lived. They're transitional species of a chemical that basically, for lack of a better term, just burn up whatever it's exposed to, right? It's a highly reactive oxygen molecule. Now, when you get sick and you get some sort of lung infection, I think everybody here has had bronchitis where you're coughing up this green, smelly stuff, right? You know, at some point in your life, you've had a bronchial infection. You've had a respiratory infection where you cough up stuff. You know you have a cough. You can feel it coming up and you feel like crap, right? Well, did you know your body was created by God? If you don't believe that, well, I feel sorry for you. But your body was created by God, and there is an amazing system that takes place in your body. It's called your immune system. Now, I'm not going to go into all kinds of immunological terminology here, but I am going to go over one basic mechanism that is involved in healing yourself when you're sick. Did you of your lungs actually produce minuscule quantities of reactive oxygen species at the site in the lungs where infection is present and is destroying tissue and right? Your body makes reactive oxygen species in minute concentration, and it basically delivers them with pinpoint accuracy to where they are needed the most. Okay? Now, the beautiful thing about the reactive oxygen species generating systems in our bodies, in our lungs to be specific, is that they are a very, very limited scope in terms of production, and they have a very finite and limited area of what's called deployment. In other words, your body doesn't make a ton of them, and it only reserves them to be used at specific down to the nanometer in terms of the location. Folks, they're proposing to make us breathe this stuff all the time. Something is coming in the air tonight, folks, and it ain't a Phil Collins song, okay? The long-term effects of breathing reactive oxygen species that will be put into the environment in the name of keeping you safe, like all of these other unprecedented, draconian, insane actions, will do just the opposite of what you're being told. The reactive oxygen species generating systems are being installed all over the place. The first place they're going are the jails and the prisons and in the hospitals and in the schools, right? Because one thing that all three of those things have in common is they're now built and being operated like what? Prisons. They're all the same. Once you go in, you can't get out unless they let you out. They got these doors and these fences, right? You go into a hospital, you can't get out unless they let you out. Ladies and gentlemen, it is very important, and it is vitally important that you understand that in order to absolutely guarantee your health and your respiratory health and your respiratory function, you must have full control over what? The air that you're breathing. And you must understand that if it's coming through an HVAC system that is beyond your control, and mechanical ventilation is being accomplished in your home or in your place of employment or in your place of business or in your place of imprisonment, or you really need to question what you're doing there. All right? All I can tell you is that unless you can open the windows, you potentially have a problem. Because the long-term consequences of exposure, inhalation exposure to reactive oxygen species is not a good outcome. All right? Once again, they're trying to tell us they're trying to keep us safe. Well, perhaps another agenda is at work. Perhaps. Is there a question mark here, or is there a period at the end of my sentence? That's up for interpretation, depending upon who you are and why you're watching me right now. You know, I've talked at length about a lot of the things that are being done to us right now in the name of keeping us safe. and they're locking everybody in their homes to keep them safe. They don't want them going outside to keep them safe. They don't want them going and congregating and going out to eat to keep them safe. They don't want them going to the beach to keep them safe. They don't want them going to a concert to keep them safe. They don't want them going on vacation to keep them safe. They don't want them going on an airplane to keep them safe. They don't want you going to the gym to keep you safe. But they will let you go to the grocery store and eat your heart out to keep you safe. They will let you go to the pharmacy to keep you safe. They will let you go to the hospital to keep you safe. But they don't want you out in the fresh air. They want you inside a room with a bunch of air purifiers, filling up the air with ozone. That's right. Anytime you see these blue lights with like these fluorescent bulbs that, you know, with a fan connected to them, those are creating ozone, folks, O3. Ultraviolet light converts oxygen molecules, O2, diatomic oxygen, into O3, ozone. So does a bolt of lightning, all right? So, you know, that's why you smell that fresh smell in a thunderstorm, because the ozone that's created by the lightning bolt, it does tend to ionize and purify the air. But guess what, folks? Lightning only strikes for a split second. It's not a constant process. But what's being replicated here is nothing that exists in nature. Nowhere in nature are we constantly breathing reactive oxygen species compounds. Your body will produce them for a millisecond, for a split second, located in a very small surface area of your lungs that happens to be infected by some sort of pathogen like a bacteria. And so as a result, ladies and gentlemen, the amount of reactive oxygen species that are produced in the human lung during the course of an infection that is under the control and guidance of your own immune system that was created by God are milliseconds in terms of time lapse and millimeters in terms of surface area. What are we facing now in the occupational setting? If you work in an office building or big box retail store, or if you work in a classroom or a hotel or any of these other places that are still open or that are going to be reopened once the vaccine goes out, you will be breathing these all the time. What happens to you when you continue breathing reactive oxygen species? Well, it's very simple, folks. You have to understand that oxidizers burn your lungs. They destroy tissue. Why do you think a cold plasma reactive oxygen species generating system is deployed in a meatpacking plant? Well, they have all of these carcasses exposed to the air as they're getting cut in half and packaged and sawed up and portioned off. And so they literally pump the atmosphere inside a meatpacking plant full of reactive oxygen species. So these will fall on the exposed meat and carcasses and the surface area of the chickens and the pigs and the carved up cows, right? And so it will area that are on the surface of the exposed meat in the meatpacking plant. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the proper use of a cold plasma reactive oxygen species generating system as an addendum to the air conditioning and heating components of a commercial facility. There is a need for reactive oxygen species to fall out of the air in high concentrations at a uniform rate over a massive surface area to have the maximum efficacy in killing the germs that start growing on the meat. Think about this for just a minute, folks. Have any of you ever been in a slaughterhouse? Well, I have. And let me tell you something, folks. When they start cutting up these animals, bloodstream, minimize the amount of and splatter. Folks, it is not normal to have your bowels emptied out all over the wall and all over the ribeye, okay? But that's what happens because when you take an animal who's got organs and a rib cage and a foregut and a rumen and a rectum and everything else that normally keeps everything sealed up inside its appropriate compartment for bodily function, you have what's called containment of pathogens and waste material as the vital organs operate and do their functions. When you go to a meat packing plant, everything gets mixed up and splattered all over the place. Even worse in a ground beef production facility. So the need for generating large amounts of reactive oxygen species is a necessity. Right now, ladies and gentlemen, right now, they're planning on putting these things everywhere people breathe. Did you hear what I just said? They're planning on putting these things everywhere people breathe, ladies and gentlemen. They're planning on putting them in the classrooms, in the cruise ships, in the hotels, in the movie theaters, in the lecture halls, in the concert venues, inside the office buildings, in the convenience stores, in the pharmacies, in the donut shops, in the apartment buildings, in the condo complexes, in the airplanes, in the college lecture halls, in the college libraries, in the city halls, in the government buildings, in the courthouses, in the retail stores, in the department stores, in the restaurants. And ultimately, they're trying to convince you to bring them into your home. They're already putting these in the new cars. The cold plasma generating reactive oxygen species systems are already in the new cars. They're already going into all the new homes. They're already going into all the air conditioning upgrades in all the schools. When you hear about schools upgrading their air conditioning systems and telling you that they're installing the latest and the greatest technology to purify the air, you need to ask them, by what means are they accomplishing that allegation? By what physical means are they attempting to purify the air? Because what you really need to purify the air is a lot of trees and a lot of plants and a lot of house plants and vegetation and brush and greenery. Because nothing clears the air better than the trees and the plants. Ladies and gentlemen, you need to understand that the air purifying systems are a weapon. Okay? The air purification systems that are being sold to us to protect us are weapons. And the long-term exposure to reactive oxygen species generating systems, these cold plasma reactive oxygen species generating systems, the long-term exposure effects is lung capacity reduction. Now, you don't want to have a reduction in your lung capacity, okay? Because you know what happens when your lung capacity is reduced? You can't breathe. Did you hear what I just said? One of the major problems with chronic exposure to reactive oxygen species in the ambient air, in your regular normal background air that you're inhaling, is diminished lung function. And this is caused by the oxidation of the lung tissue by the free radicals that are generated by these air conditioning purifiers. Now, folks, I know a lot of you out there, some of you are like health nuts, some of you are in the health industry, some of you are in the nutrition industry, and all you hear about are antioxidants, right? Oh, they're selling these antioxidants, or these caplets, or these gel caps, or these tablets, or this, fruit powder or whatever. Oh, it's full of antioxidants, right? Then why are they proposing to put oxidizers all over everything that we rely on for air circulation? Isn't that amazing? You see, folks, there is something in the air tonight, and if they have their way, there will be something in the air for the rest of your life. And you want to know something, ladies and gentlemen? I'm here to warn you about this dirty trick that they've got up their sleeve. Open the windows, ladies and gentlemen. You need to have free airflow in your home or your car, or get yourself one of these old vehicles like I drive, where you don't have any weapons in it. They ain't got no Wi-Fi. They can't hijack this thing with their remote control systems. If they try to you know, stick my accelerator to the floor, which they can't do. I just got to grab my transmission thing here and drop that thing into neutral, because it's connected by what? Manual linkage. No computers involved in going into first, second, reverse, or drive with this old jalopy, right? And they can't make the accelerator stick because it's run by what? A cable. And if I don't push on it, even if they try to rig it, folks, all I gotta do is turn off the key. Okay, all these things. My point is, you know, there are ways to avoid the traps, folks. And if there is something coming in the air tonight, I'm here to warn you that it's probably not a good idea for you to blindly inhale it. This is Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer, P.O. Box 4121, Fullerton, California, 92834. And on the web at thefullertoninformer.com, WiFiDangers.com, VaxDangers.com. And folks, the reason I'm wearing these glasses is it's a whole different discussion. But you've got to protect your eyes at night from the headlights and the street lights. These cars have all got weaponized headlights. They've changed out all these street lights to LED, light-emitting diode technology. It basically is going to ruin your eyes. And why do I say that? Well, because it's a fact that LED emissions, the photonic emissions, the light emissions coming out of LED headlights, LED street lights, creates what? Reactive oxygen species in the backs of your eyes. It oxidizes the retinol, the photoreceptors, and destroys your photoreceptors. Here we go again. What do you think reactive oxygen species do to your eyes, ladies and gentlemen? Well, I can tell you what they do to your eyes, the same thing they do to your lungs. And that's why Apple TV has got a new series called CSEE, right? Where in the future a virus makes everybody go blind. All right, folks, this is Joe Imbriano, and I just want you to understand that what is going on right now is nothing short of criminal, okay? And the reality is what's going on right now, folks, is you've got to do everything you can to protect yourself against this agenda, all right? Your eyes are just as vulnerable to these agendas as your lungs are. Can you see these glasses I have on? This is what you need to protect your eyes, not only from the light emissions coming out of these weaponized headlights, but when they roll out the 5G, when these millimeter waves come out, you better be protecting your eyes, because the millimeter waves also damage your eyes, folks. Crimes against humanity. I'm here to tell you in Jesus' name that he who has wisdom, let him hear. Take care, folks.